Welcome to the Purple Rock Podcast. I am your host, Andy. With me for the special summer series on Heroes versus Villains is Emma, who I brought along with me because I figured I could beat in the finals.
I don't know about that.
It took us like 6 tries, but we finally nailed an intro without you messing it up. Yay!
Well, you never will tell me what the intros are going to be.
John never tells me. Are you telling me that you're not the same as me?
No, well, not exactly. There are some arguments to be said there. And we had the intro, and now we've ruined it.
I don't care. It's going down. Let's book it. That's like a record. So yeah, this is it. We're talking about the final. We're talking about the reunion. We're talking about the season as a whole. And I figured we can start from the beginning, which is, I don't know, what, a 30-minute introduction to the episode. But when I was watching the intro, it just really struck me. And it struck me rewatching it this time. It struck me when I rewatched it last summer for our 30 from 30 series. This is a heck of a Final Five, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, very, very iconic, as the kids say.
Yeah, I mean, they might not have all been players in this particular iteration, but, you know, you've got Colby Donaldson and Jerry, like two of the biggest names when Survivor really mattered. You've got Parvati, you know, huge winner from the last time they brought people back. Sandra, former winner, and then Russell Hantz, the biggest villain of all time. So it's like, wow. I mean, yeah, it's not even worth asking, is this the best Final Five ever? Because, well, yeah, obviously. Yeah. And part of it is it's hard to compete with, you know, only the second returnee season ever. And, you know, the first one everybody hates because, you know, I guess maybe because Jerry and Colby weren't in it. I don't know. But
Yeah.
wow, the people that were also rans didn't just run, you know, let the people I wanted to watch win. Wah.
Very inconsiderate of them.
Yeah. So I don't know. That was just the first thing that struck me. And it's kind of similar to the intro of the season to bring this all full circle and how epic that was to begin with, too. So this is just an epic season, man. So then we get back to camp. This is following them voting out Rupert and Sandra very iconically, to use your term, playing her idol. Your term, like you invented it, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I invented the word iconic.
Yeah, that was quite iconic of you.
I'm a billionaire.
And I think right there, and then other scenes throughout this finale really kind of gives us everything you need to know about Russell Hantz. Obviously, we've had it through the season, you had it before, but he is such a baby about the fact that Sandra looked good and he didn't.
Yeah, he was like asking him, did you know she had an idol? Like, who knew she had? It's like, Sandra doesn't really have an ally at this point. Who would she tell that she had an idol? Wouldn't have done her any good.
Yeah, and then he's like, well, it was stupid to do anyway. Doesn't do any good, you get any credit. And Parvati, to her credit, it's like, you played an idol that was wasted.
Yeah, and she at least did it on the last day it could be where it's like, no harm, no foul. It's basically just like, yeah, I had this. Like, yeah. I kind of feel like if you have you should just play it on the last day just to be like, yeah, I had it.
Yeah, the only way you shouldn't is if you are otherwise immune. Otherwise, it's like, yeah, sure. You should let people know that you had it. And it would be the dumbest thing ever to, go out at that point. We'll speak more on dumbest things ever later. So that was kind of the first indication of it. And then other times in this finale, you see, just Russell Hantz, because he gets, I already called him the greatest villain ever, all this, the big bad Russell Hantz, but he's also like the biggest baby ever. So, we see it there. We see it during the Parade of Losers, which, it's always a fun moment during a rewatch where we're like, oh, God, they're doing this right. Where, like, he cannot say anything nice about anybody.
Except Colby.
Except for Colby. And that's actually,
why? Why Colby, though? I do wonder.
Well, I actually have some thoughts on that one.
You have thoughts?
That's what I do. What I do here. I come here and I make my money by having thoughts. No money exchanges hands anywhere.
It wouldn't count as Canadian anyway.
Well, the nice thing is if you win a contest in Canada, you don't have to pay taxes on it. So that's nice.
Yeah, but you don't even have Survivor, so it doesn't matter.
No, and the additions of reality shows we have, I mean, I don't know because I've never watched any of them, but I'm pretty sure they're not paying out $1 million. Yeah, it's probably just like Canadian Tire money and a gift card to Tim Hortons. But so yeah, there, and he's just like, it's like just shows how like he just can't stand the 1 second being about somebody else. He just has to. Oh, they sucked anyway. Oh, look where it got him. You know, it's just like they're not even here, man.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, but that does Russell. And then later when he can't find his hat and he's threatening to just not go to final tribal council. That was a nice moment.
Yeah, I do like, while it is skipping ahead, how he tries to be like, yeah, that was a good move. That was strategy. And I'm like, that wasn't like, yeah, maybe it did like shake you up or whatever, but like Sandy just did it because she doesn't like you, bro. Like, yeah. That was not like, I have a devious plan.
Well, for him, and it just kind of fits into what I'm saying. He can call that a brilliant move because it echoes what he does. You know, when he's hiding stuff and all that, which, you know, especially at least in this season, seemed to have like zero effect on anybody.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, so you're playing the Russell Hantz Steelbook, so it's got to be amazing, but not so much. So I just brought that up to start because for one, that is how this episode starts, and for two, I don't know how much more of this we're going to spend talking about Russell for the most part. It's kind of nice, and finale that he wins an immunity. He obviously makes a decision, but I don't know if there's much more to say about Russell Hantz at this point that hasn't been said. We'll probably do it at least more, but yeah, he's just a big baby, and he doesn't matter at all in when it comes to winning time. So as you said, the one person he actually had something nice to say about was Colby. So, and Colby ends up being the first person in the finale to go home. So I thought this was an opportunity to give kind of final thoughts about Colby, both for this season and just in general. Although you, like most people, seem to not remember much about the Australian Outback.
Yeah, I know that he, won challenges and was younger and cuter and had a weird reward with his mom and he ain't no Hershey bar, and he brought Tina to the end,
and he led his entire tribe into victories, and strategically he was the one that made sure the votes went to him so that they would stay off of Keith so that they could win the tiebreaker against Jeff Farner. But apparently history has decided he is not strategic at all.
Hey man, I was 11.
I'm giving you a bit of a pass. Although I swear, like everybody, like besides me at the Purple Rock, needs to freaking watch that season at some point. You're all like, "Oh, nothing happened." It's like,
there's no. I have no.
It's the biggest season in the history of Survivor at the time.
Yeah. At the time.
Well, and probably ever since. Like, I don't know if any season has ever been watched more than Australia.
No, it just sounds funny to say like it was the biggest deal at the time, but it was the second one.
Yeah, it beat the other one. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
and for quite some time after, like they brought back every member of the cast. So yeah, it's kind of a big deal, and he was a big deal, and everybody seems to have forgotten that to the point where he'll never make the Hall of Fame, and now retroactively people call him stupid. And
you might even say that it's iconic.
Ding ding ding. That's the word of the day. And I think obviously a big reason why history is not as kind to Colby as it should be. Well, first is he lost. And modern sensibilities likes to frame that as a stupid thing that he did. We'll talk about that later. Whereas at the time it was hailed as quite heroic.
Yes.
But the other reason is because he did not have a great season at Heroes versus Villains.
And he didn't. I mean, he also didn't last very long on All Stars.
No, he was a bit of an after. He was pretty jury. And nobody would ever spend a whole lot of time talking about somebody who was eliminated pre-merge on an All-Star season. But for this season, I think he deserves a little bit of praise. He's remembered as Superman as a fat suit. Obviously, he did not do well in challenges to the point where people forgot when Parvati was told that she was second in most individual challenge wins. She's like, to who? And they're like, Colby. And she's like, what? That guy?
Although I do wonder if she was expecting it to be Ozzy.
Yeah.
Just
And I
she,
imagine it is now.
like, the only season she's seen, as people joked. Although I did notice she recognized one of the challenges in this episode as being from China. So, for what it's worth. But yeah, and I mean, I think when you witness Ozzy dominate challenges, you just kind of assume no one's done that before.
Yeah, but the reason why it's not Ozzy is, she made sure to eliminate him pretty quickly in his second turn.
Right.
And I think they had a late merge in order to fix it for the I-24. That's what we talk about now on the internet, right?
Like that.
So he just didn't have as many individual challenges at that time.
Precisely.
But yeah, I mean, so yeah, Colby did not look good in that respect. There's many times when he seemed to be checked out strategically, but what I think he did well is he had a pretty good social game to the point where Russell Hantz will give him credit. Like, that's, I think, how well Colby was able to get people to like him. And, he's come out and said, and obviously this is the thing you say when you look this bad on TV, is that some of that was gameplay, that he wanted to take the target off himself. Now, to his credit, he said it like in his day after thought, so it isn't just something he came up with.
What can I say to keep from humiliating myself once this airs?
Yeah, but that's the thing. It still could have been made up, but at least he thought of the excuse on the island. And I think, there could be some degree. Like, I bet it's a mix, because I'm not going to completely absolve him. I think when he sucked early on, that was just sucking. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he wasn't intending to suck. But I think once it got to the individual phase, he probably realized there were some challenges like, I might not be able to win this, so why try? So I think that might be where some of the strategies, like, well, there'd be some benefit for not looking strong, so whoops. Whereas he probably wouldn't have won anyway, but.
Right, and I mean, he was the last hero standing, and often the last person from an alliance is because they're, considered the weakest or whatever, like there's just the least reason to target. But if you consider that he was in a pretty bad spot on the Heroes tribe for a while there, making it to fifth, that's nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, no, like if James doesn't tear up his knee, Colby doesn't make it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, the idea of having to play from behind and coming up with a different way, I think there's some credence that maybe he had that, combined with the fact that like an acceptance, when he's, frog marched by coach on day one, that like, hey, maybe I just don't have it anymore. So I think it was a bit of a mix, but I do think of the heroes, and like how I had to say last week that Rupert was the best player of the heroes. These are low bars we're talking about. He probably had the best social game of them all. And, there's secret scenes showing that, he was definitely well liked amongst some of the villains. And even in text, you see it with, what's that guy's name again? Russell Hantz. Yeah. So, not much else on Colby. Just, this wasn't the best showing of Colby Donaldson. It's definitely the last I want to see of him. But, maybe it wasn't as bad as we've made it out to be, because James once had a really funny quip about him. Like, that seems to become like the Colby epitaph, Superman in a fat suit. Well, let's try to remember the Superman part a little bit.
Right. So for what it's worth. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, for what it's worth, I voted for Colby in the Hall of Fame last time.
Yeah. And the people, I was about to say the people that made it are fine, but no, they weren't. I was fine that Jerry made it, but
yes. I was hoping I was like, you can't, Jerry and Colby, you need them both.
Should be both, exactly.
And so I'm hoping
maybe neither, because, the person that beat them both is not in there. But anyway.
Right. But, I guess it depends on how you view it, whether it's just, sort of icons of the game or great players. But anyway, this is not a podcast about the Survivor.
Let's make it about that, because, you want to make all that argument, but, Coach got it. So yes,
Oh God, I forgot.
Colby came much closer to winning Survivor than a lot of people that are in there. But we'll bring this podcast back to something that mattered for Heroes versus Villains, and that would be Parvati. She mattered a bit,
and she does deserve to be in the Hall of Fame.
And she was, I believe, in the inaugural class, for what it's worth, along with Russell Hantz. How the heck did she make it to the final Tribal Council?
Yeah, like watching it, I was like, I just kind of had assumed that, from my memory, it's like I knew the Danielle thing happened, and I knew there was stuff where she's like, yeah, I would have voted for Sandra, but like I figured like, well, she must have maintained that like Russell bond, you know, so he just wanted to be at the end with her. But then I was like, when watching, I was like, wait, how did this happen? Like,
Yeah, because Russell keeps saying that, and not just this episode. The groundwork was there that
yeah,
she's the most dangerous person. She's the only person that could beat him in the final two. Like
yeah,
that's like and through like the rubric of which he views the game, that makes sense, right? Like, oh, she's the only other player, the only person playing strategically. I mean,
right.
she's riding my coattails, but still.
Like, all I can think of is, I mean, I guess as far as I can tell, it must be as simple as she says at Final Tribal, which is just he knew that he could get Jerry's vote.
Yeah, no, I mean that's I think the only explanation given by the episode.
Yeah,
I guess it's like, well,
and
that's
nothing.
one vote, Russell. Like maybe have you counted it up and you needed that one?
And I mean, he is dumb, so I wouldn't put it past him to be that short-sighted. But it's such a minor reason, and nothing else makes sense. And like, here's the thing: it's like, yeah, you think you'd get her vote, but will that still happen if you vote her out when you've promised her final three?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that part just doesn't like enter into his brain at all. He doesn't understand that part. But yeah, it's just more just like, but that's one vote. Previously, you kept worrying that Parvati would take a lot more votes than Jerry would. So why do you care about this vote when, like, it seems like he thinks that he can beat? Obviously, he thinks he can beat Sandra easily. That's where we get, the awesome scenes and then juxtaposition. But he also seemed to think he could beat Jerry very easily. So why do you care about her vote? And it's just, I think, so that's the explanation. The only explanation that we have. I think probably the easiest explanation is, I think he was just smitten with Parvati, and he enjoyed her attention. He just couldn't bring himself to do it. He wanted her to like him and to be amazed by him, and that continuing because that's what she's good at, and it's not hard to believe that like Russell Hantz had never received attention like that from somebody like that.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely buy that. I mean, that's Parvati's whole thing is just being charming and people wanting to be around her.
Yeah, so it's a puzzler. If anybody else has any other theories, because it's like, I mean, I think part of it is he probably felt he could beat anyone because he's Russell Hantz and he thinks he can beat anyone. Mm-hmm. And I didn't put this on the breakdown, but this is actually what I'm talking about.
Sorry, really, really big bug on my wall just distracted me.
Oh no, do we need to call somebody in? Exterminator, is this a situation? Do I need to monologue for a bit? I mean, that's not really my strong suit of just like talking without giving, but I could give it a shot for your sake.
I'll just try to out of sight, out of mind it.
It probably won't hurt you. You're not in Florida.
It's like this big. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Treat this like a Survivor challenge.
Okay, keep talking.
If you can't podcast about Survivor with bugs around, maybe you won't be able to compete where they're everywhere. Thinking about creepy crawly things, this actually I forgot to mention, but like, do we think that Russell thought that he had won Samoa?
Okay, so it seemed like there is that confessional. It seemed to be like the prevailing theory before that, it's just in how he behaves. You'd think maybe he would have learned his lesson. So I know there's theories or conspiracy theories or whatever that he just had to like do a confessional with both ways or something, like as if he had won, or as if, because it also like what he says doesn't really make sense, because he's like, yeah, I thought I could win before by bringing people who didn't do anything to the end, but that didn't work. So this time I'm going to bring people who didn't do anything to the end, and that'll work.
Yeah, and so I was watching for it this time because I think he thought he won Samoa. Not just by the way he played here, but the way he reacts in the Samoa finale. That is not the actions of a man who would come to terms with it. Because keep in mind, like, he doesn't know, right? Like, that finale has not aired yet. That was, the look of a man who realized that he just lost Survivor twice. Right. Because I'm pretty confident he knows he's lost Heroes, which is Phil.
Yeah, like, he's dense, but no one that.
Yeah. I think it's just a Franken quote. I actually watched it, so because I was really intense on this one. And while he's talking about what his plan was last time, that's all VO, that's all voiceover. And then a little bit of it didn't work, and I didn't. It was something like that. then we cut to him and saying that, and then we go off again. I think it's just simple as they grabbed, him saying, and I didn't, or something, throwing it in there so that, they can maintain the illusion that these things are sequential, not like kind of fool. It's not even like I think they're trying to trick people so much as they just don't want the cognitive dissonance of the casual fan trying to be like, oh yeah, that hasn't happened, blah, blah, blah. And I think throughout the season, the rest of the season, for one, they probably forbid him from how he did. Interviews from other contestants have suggested that. They probably just edited around anytime he bragged about how he won before against that group of idiots, and it's so great to be around All-Stars. So
it's a shame though. Like, could you imagine if how great it would be if they let us know that he thought he won, and all this time of him bragging about it and talking about it and been yeah, so I won before, so I'm just gonna these people are a little bit, but I'm just gonna do the same thing and
3 winners going to the end, but I'll be the only 2-time winner. Yeah, no, that'd be really satisfying for us. But again, with the cognitive dissonance, most people just watched him lose, so they wouldn't work TV wise. But it would be amazing for us.
Yeah, I totally understand the decision, but it makes you wish there was a director's cut or something.
Mm-hmm. So I will forever believe that he thought he had won Samoa. Honestly, don't come at me with any evidence of in an interview he said that no or yes, or unless it's yes. If you have yes evidence, share it with me. No, I don't believe. So sorry, I just feel like it's just entirely possible that maybe Russell Hantz would make up a lie or something to make himself look less bad. Just crazy. But it's just, the Parvati, the final tribal council, just doesn't make any sense. I think, it's a feather in her cap for the most part. More than anything else. Why didn't she? Because Parvati's good enough to not get voted out there. And, I don't have a really hard time believing that she was going to get voted out until she talked to Russell that last time. Mm-hmm. So when that happened, getting back to it, it seemed like he wanted to take the people he thought he could beat. And obviously we get the great scene of him saying that, right to Sandra's face, I want to bring you to the end because I think I can beat you. And obviously, but here's the thing, and we always will make fun of Russell for that, and we always should make fun of Russell for that. I'm certainly not naysaying that, but Jerry also thought that Sandra had no chance of winning.
Well, here's the thing. Yeah. That I wonder about that, because now maybe I'm only remembering one scene and you're remembering multiple scenes. But what I remember of that coming up is when Russell and Jerry are talking amongst themselves, and it's oh yeah, man, great that she didn't win immunity, we got this, and it's yeah, because this is a ticket for one of us to get $1 million, and she said, yeah, Sandra didn't do anything, and Parvati just rode your coattails. This is fine. I also don't think Jerry believes that Parvati. We see Jerry not only even before Tribal Council, in her speech or whatnot, we see her praise Parvati and stuff like that. So I don't know if she necessarily thinks it's true, or if she's just saying that to Russell because the alternative is bringing Parvati, and I think she's confident that she won't. That Jerry is confident that she wouldn't get more votes than Parvati, so she wants to make sure Parvati's gone.
If that's the case, then telling Russell that she Parvati only rode his coattails, not the wisest strategy. Should be man, she's dangerous. That girl's dangerous. She can beat you.
Well, Jerry is not a perfect player.
No. And
she's not bad, but she's not.
Yeah. What I want to say is, if she truly believes that, I'm not going to say that, it means that she's an idiot. I think what it just says is that Jerry views this game in a different way than most jurors. And not in a way that,
on the carpet now. I saw it again.
Well, are you capable of, killing such a thing? No. I'm not talking ethically. It just obviously, this is bringing up a whole set of gendered stuff and all of that.
We just had this discussion on Slack. I said, no, I am not capable of killing bugs and spiders.
Because just squish it, woman. Grab a Kleenex. It's not a big deal.
I don't have access to a Kleenex right now. It's so big. It's too big for that.
Just so you know, that's the screenshot for the episode.
It's okay.
It's okay. Okay. Just lift your feet up and you're good. I doubt.
Yeah, I've already. Okay.
I doubt it will crawl up. The bed, but maybe
Okay, if it does, I cannot promise that I will not scream.
I don't know which one I'm hoping for now. No, I wish you luck through this hard time.
I thought
but
it was
think
better when I couldn't see it, but it's so much, but it's actually worse.
That's right. Where could it be? It could be anywhere. Remember that time on Survivor when a bug went into a lady's ear? I'm not being helpful. So what I think just what it says about Jerry is she views Survivor from a different lens than other jury members, and not in the way that Russell just doesn't understand how juries work, but in her exit interview, not exit interview, but her closing words, the extended version or whatever, she just thinks that Russell played a great game, and that's who she's going to get her vote, and that's who people should vote for, and I think she's just thinking terms of gameplay, and probably because she has been a juror before and didn't seem to hold grudges, although it's hard to tell because she had to choose between two people who had betrayed her. But I think that's just where it's coming from her. She thinks that that's how she views Survivor and how she thinks she's going to view it, and she hasn't come around to the idea that no, the jury's going to vote for the people they like best. I mean, she knew it enough to know that Rupert and Colby were huge threats, so she's not as dumb as Russell, who toyed with the idea of bringing them, although he toys with a lot of ideas. So her whole plan was that Russell should vote out Parvati, which obviously is better than Russell voting out Jerry. So because Sandra would be easy to beat. Do you think she could have beaten Sandra? Let's take Russell out. Russell's not beating anybody, so let's just say Jerry versus Sandra.
Okay, Sandra still gets Courtney, still gets Rupert, still gets Candace for sure. Definitely gets those three guaranteed. Jerry probably gets Coach.
Yeah, I would say definitely.
And then honestly, the rest of it, I feel like is pretty up in the air.
I don't think she gets Parvati.
Good point. Probably Parvati has spoken highly of Sandra. Doesn't get Parvati. So now
we're talking Amanda, JT, and Colby. I could see Jerry getting Colby and Danielle. Yeah, I could see Jerry getting Colby.
True, the history.
I don't think she gets Danielle because she was the person who voted Danielle out.
Exactly, I was going to say that as well.
So Sandra now she needs JT, Amanda, or is it already over?
Yeah, it's already over.
There you go.
If Danielle votes Sandra, yeah.
So I don't think she wins there. So if Sandra gets her way and votes out Parvati, or no, if Russell gets, or I don't know, whatever. Could she have beaten Parvati?
Yeah. Okay. Well,
if Parvati gets her way in it, but no, Parvati wanted Sandra.
She wanted, because Parvati no longer gets Jerry. But I feel like Parvati might get Sandra. I don't know. What do you think? Or do you think
I think absolutely she gets Sandra.
Because when she's listing everyone she hates, now granted that was a while ago, I think it's notable she does not include Parvati when she's naming every villain that she hates. She leaves out Parvati and she leaves out Courtney.
In the past couple episodes, we see them sitting around and laughing together.
It's the only question is if she gets annoyed because she gets voted out and sees that as a part. But
yeah, it would have been unanimous, and Jerry would have been there and stuff. And Jerry was more of the person responsible getting rid of Rob. Parvati was just trying to save herself.
Right. Okay, so Sandra. So basically, Parvati, the Jerry vote is replaced by Sandra.
Yep.
In that case, so she still gets Coach. She still gets Danielle. And this Colby still goes for Jerry.
I think Jerry could get Colby's vote.
Actually,
she loses Coach's vote.
She loses Coach's vote.
Probably.
Yeah, probably. We don't know for sure because maybe he was upset that Jerry ruined his relationship with Boston Rob or something. Honestly, the rest of it, it's really I personally feel like it's really hard to say because I don't know that Sandra and Jerry are interchangeable, where it's just I didn't want to vote for Parvati or Russell, so that I voted for that person instead. I'm not sure that it's totally interchangeable.
Yeah, I don't think you get that
she
same
probably gets
with
Courtney's
Jerry,
vote.
right?
I think Parvati gets Courtney.
Danielle, Sandra.
Yeah.
She needs two more, right, to win?
Yeah.
I think.
Does Amanda change her mind? Does Candace change her mind?
Well, see, so I think she gets Rupert's vote. Rupert spoke very highly of Parvati. It's just that Parvati wasn't, Sandra, right?
Yeah, true. Okay.
So Now we just need one more from, Candace, Amanda, JT.
Probably not JT if the letter thing like hurt his feelings, although maybe he did seem to be like, he's just like, make your bed, lie in it. Like, depends on how she handled that. Like, he had no reason to try to convince himself to vote for her. But
so I think what hurts Jerry for both JT and Amanda is she basically had no time to form a relationship with either of them. Whereas, obviously Amanda and Parvati have a pre-existing relationship. Whether that helps or hurts, we don't know for sure. Because maybe that's why it makes the betrayal sting even more. But, now we're like one vote. I still think Parvati kind of wins. So, there's this idea that Jerry came this close to winning. And she certainly came close to having a shot to win. But I don't think actually she had really had a path. I think, maybe a shot. But I do think that, I think Parvati wins if Sandra isn't there. And I think Sandra beats any of them. So, good showing by Jerry. But we should talk about this. Actually, just to kind of talk about Jerry's whole run, I think her change from Australia through to Heroes versus Villains is probably the best long-term character development in the history of the show. Obviously, it's a low bar. Long-term character development is not what Survivor's about.
And there's going to be minimal, like that is a small sample size.
Yeah. But it's in Heroes in Australia, obviously she was the big villain, and now modern audience to be like, oh, it's so quaint that we used to call her a villain, but like it wasn't like invented by us. She was not well liked in Australia, not just by pearl punching viewers. She was
off the stage in All Stars.
Yeah, that's the big one, and I think and that's why it's really actually really nice to see how it happens in Heroes versus Villains.
Yeah, and she gets all these cheers at the reunion, and I'm like, my heart swelled. It was beautiful.
Yeah, no, she's not stomping off. She seemed to laugh a lot. She seemed to truly enjoy herself. So she was able to win. And I also don't think it was as close as she thought. Actually, I think her chance to win went out the door a bit when she voted out Danielle. But I think she comes away with, still a pretty big winner, life-wise. This is a much better way for her to come to terms with, her Survivor life, which is a big thing of her life, because again, I'll state it, Australia was a big effing deal. She was on cover of magazines and newspapers. I was gonna say
she was one of the ones who was. Did she do Playboy?
Yes, she did.
Yeah, so she was probably the first one to do Playboy.
And cover spread type deal,
not just like one page, like
reality thrown in here. Although
after the fact,
we're also on the cover, right?
Yes. Well, of course, they're the chocolate and peanut butter girls.
They had to share it. Jerry shares with no one.
Yeah. Although Heidi did parlay that Playboy cover shoot into quite the lucrative.
Are you suggesting a baseball player was more likely to find somebody through Playboy than reality television?
He met her at like a signing for her. He was a minor leaguer.
And he was just
giving autographs.
That's sweet. It's sweet. All right.
Way to what an investment by Heidi's part. Like, way to get in early.
That's right. He's like, oh, what's your stats? What are you batting? How many tools he got?
He's a pitcher, so not the batting, but.
Right. Well, he's a National League pitcher, so you keep telling me that it's worthwhile for them to be batting. Because it's awesome seeing people that aren't good at something do it on a professional level.
Hey, if you had Bumgarner on your team, you'd be into it too.
Sure, he would be one of the better hitters of my team. But, one guy doesn't necessarily justify, hey, let's intentionally walk this 280 or 228th spot hitter so that we can get the easy out at the pitcher spot. Let's make this guy who hasn't hit since, high school go up.
I'm going to say we're losing a lot of people right now.
I don't care. You got Giants posters there. I've got my Ichiro shrine. This is what we're talking about.
This is all Timmy. That makes me sad.
He makes everyone sad. Talk about Superman in a fat suit.
Well, he's still skinny.
Yes.
But
so was Colby Donaldson. Colby was actually...
That's true. He was really good... He was still looking tight.
He looks good, but he's looking scrawnier. And it actually... Yeah, and he's...
Well, he lasted so long.
Part of it, he lost so much of his body weight, and he did not have a lot to lose, which, goes to show... put some meat on if you're going back to Survivor, if you're a guy, because frankly, they don't. If a woman tried to play that strategy, like, that was cast to look good in a bikini, they'd be like, oh, last minute scratch.
Yeah. Apparently that Carolina or whoever did that and then got voted out first. And she's like, I gained like 15 pounds.
How am I going to lose this now? Well, actually, we might talk about her a little later. So, yeah, no, it's just nice. I enjoyed Jerry throughout the season in a way that obviously we couldn't before, even though, like, she just got a harsh deal in All-Stars. Rupert tried to drown her. So that was nice to see. So now we get to Final Tribal Council. And do you have any general thoughts about how the Final Tribal Council went?
Final Tribal. Well, I thought... What did I think? Oh, it's fun, with everyone bashing Russell and explaining to Russell. Like, it's not just like how he's probably used to before. It's just like, we don't like you. We think we're mean. But he's there because, like, they're all-stars. So they're like, this was bad strategy. Like JT, saying like, hey, like, I will admit, like, I have made my bed. I will lie in it. I understand. Like, I took a risk. It didn't pay off. Like, you need to understand that what you did is not paying off. And
like when Danielle is lecturing you at Final Tribal Council, it might be a time, like, on how to manage a jury.
Right.
Because what, did she get 2 votes? I don't know. It's time to take stock of your life, which is not something he will ever do.
And he never once, like, he never really had the realization where he then tried to, like, walk everything back. Like, it just wasn't happening.
No. He just stood his ground. And obviously there's been other survivors who've liked that in the past when they recognize they're not going to win. They're like, sure, give him a finger. But
this was not that. They were like, look, this is what, he's like, I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. And it's like, but that's what
this is. That's
ask
the thing.
Todd Herzog if you shouldn't tell people what they want to hear.
He has no idea who Todd Herzog is.
I know, I'm just saying,
But what was your favorite moment out of the Final Tribal Council?
Favorite moment?
It's a question I wrote down, and I don't know if I have an answer prepared.
I don't. Yeah, Did you write?
It's there.
I really feel like it's not. Oh, yeah. Well, you spelled it with a U, so I didn't recognize it.
I spelled it the way the Queen makes us spell it.
What Queen? I follow
the Queen's English. You bastards. Those U's are important, even though they actually have no real function other than for me to just, show that
Queen's English is really inefficient. Like, aluminium, what is up with that bullshit? You don't need it.
Yeah. And frankly, if we obviously Americans have the advantage on intelligence and the way to evolve thought, so we shouldn't really be arguing. How's that election going? So favorite moments, obviously, Courtney was pretty cute with Sandra.
Yes, Courtney was fun. Honestly, if I'm being totally honest, it was like a little overkill for me. Just the but super obvious, you're my girl, love you. It's like, okay, let's try to make it not like you're entirely voting for her because she's your bestie. Like,
try to make it like she did something well. 2 favorite moments for me. One,
I can tell you my least favorite moment when you're done.
We talked about, I think last time, was Parvati's line about making the dragon my pet, which
obviously
I have now debunked. But who cares? Like, the things don't need to be true; they need to sound good. And I think it got her 1 vote.
I just remembered my favorite moment. So you can keep going.
No, go.
I just
said one thing. I'm hoping you say the same thing as me.
Okay, probably. Well, I was gonna say too, the best part of the dragon thing too is like when she starts saying it and they cut to Coach and she's like, "Dragon? No, that's my thing. You can't talk
and then
about
like,
that." I see.
And my whole ethos is about that.
Doggy.
So,
yeah.
Well, you backed me into a corner.
Oh, actually, the thing I just remembered was actually from the reunion, so never mind.
I liked when Parvati totally blew up Russell's spot with Jerry. That was fantastic.
Yes, that was great. That was a great moment. That was a great, not just television moment, but like really smart.
Mm-hmm. And it was set up earlier in the episode when her and Sandra are talking. Like, he has no idea what he's in for going with two women. And and actually, it's kind of set up throughout the season. Whenever he would try and like pit two people about it against each other, it's like, oh, well, I'm going to go talk to her about that. No, you can't do that. If you go, you're gone. I promise you. And it's the same deal. It's like, I'm going to tell them about this when you lie. Now, the one thing I didn't like about it is then when Parvati, responded to Jerry's, rhetorical question about what happens when you assume in her, best teacher's pet voice. That was a little too cute, but I think at that point, Parvati was probably excited to get a win.
Yeah, she was like, I did it. Yeah, it makes an ass out of you and me.
But yeah, it's obviously any moment where, Russell looks stupid is a good moment. Another awesome one is when Coach is talking to Russell, and he wants to sound all his smart by quoting scripture, and he's really just quoting Indiana Jones.
I'll admit I didn't catch that. I caught it when you mentioned it, but I didn't personally.
Have you not seen Indiana Jones?
I have seen Raiders of the Lost Ark. I did not see it until college.
That's okay. I will allow, you are allowed to, go back and watch things as you're older, but you haven't seen The Last Crusade, the one with Sean Connery?
No.
You probably shouldn't be doing rewatches to Survivor. You should be watching stuff like Die Hard and Indiana Jones.
Die Hard.
Get it together. There's no bugs in your room. And then when Coach casts his vote for Parvati, and he's like, the Dragon Slayer's journey is finished, and then they put an eagle sting at the end.
Actually, also on Coach, that he told Russell that he was a little man.
Where have we heard that before?
Because he heard that before, but also my favorite part is he's in stature and in character.
Because he is a very short man, Russell.
And that is true, but I was like, that's a little unnecessary, Coach. That's not what the problem with Russell is. I mean, it might be why he acts the way he is. It might be a Napoleon complex.
Part of it.
But, that was hilarious. And then, as part of one of my least favorite parts, his whole thing was, well, Sandra, you did nothing. You were so weak out there in the challenges, when I'm sure Sandra did a lot at camp. I feel like she probably is a good camp life person. So it's even if for him it's strong and the team and stuff, it's not all challenges. Not everyone's going to have that. But more so than that was him saying that he assumed Parvati would be weak, but it turns out she's actually strong. And I'm trying to keep it clean for the podcast, but
why did you assume that, Coach?
Why did you think that she'd be weak? She is in good shape. You also clearly didn't want, she won a lot of challenges in Micronesia. Obviously she wasn't going to win a lot in Cook Islands because she's up against Aussie, but she performed respectably. And golly gee whiz, why might he assume that she was going to be bad in challenges? It's one thing to assume that Courtney's not going to be great at challenges. The girl is bones, but come on.
What's weird is that, what Coach coaches, right?
Right! Good! Yeah! I hate him so much. I really hate him.
So maybe that's it. It's only my, athletics female soccer players count. If you don't live up to that standard, you are not worthy. So Danielle, I think, actually played some college soccer, so maybe he didn't.
At the very least, she was definitely NCAA in something. So if it's just yes, college
soccer, but yeah, she was a captain of sports.
Yes. And as we learned from Terry, that Panama trip, most athletic ever, they had multiple NCAA people.
That's right. So. Nothing about pumping himself up. Although, even though it is legit, at the same time, we haven't exactly gone through and checked the rest of the resumes. We're kind of just taking them, sure, yours is the best. I don't know.
I guess that is a lot of NCAA athletes. Although, I mean, God, ours played for Irvine. It's not
but it was Div 1. Although I went through and I don't think he ever played a single NBA player. But I think he did probably coming up.
My alma mater, is in the end. We are Division 1, we are NCAA, but it's not
True. You were in the tournament that one year.
Yeah, once. Like, we have one sports story, and it's like tragic.
It's a really tragic sports story.
It's like terrible. LMU, for anyone who's listening, I don't care if you know. So yeah, it's the people who like NCAA basketball. It's the Hank Gathers thing. But yeah, like people rushed to the court because we beat Gonzaga in the regular season once. It was like a huge deal. It's like we had just won March Madness. So yeah,
you can be off the rails here.
Yes, you can be the moral of the story is you can be NCAA without being like world class. It's still impressive, but like it doesn't mean you're like amazing.
But yes, so Emma has cracked the case that Coach might not exactly have the best view of gender relations. So do you think any of the finalists had like a stunning tribal council performance?
Like, no.
Yeah, no, agreed. Fine. Yeah. Obviously, Russell was a disaster.
Yeah, Russell was terrible.
Parvati was fine. Sandra did what she needed to do.
Yeah, they were fine.
Yeah, it's funny. Russell's like, "Oh, see, how did that strategy go?" But it's like you just don't get it. She's just reminding them all that, like, you hate Russell. Voting for me is the vote for.
And it's like, yeah, it's like her point isn't that she failed. Her point is you guys effed up. Like that's on you. But in a way,
don't blame me.
Yeah, but in a way that's not making them think like they're being, yelled at or like being disrespected or anything. It's more just sort of like, well, don't you feel a little silly now, guys, huh?
Yeah. So I think actually in that respect, she had a great performance because you would hope they would infer that, but that's not, you don't hope people come out of this inferring things. Her job was to remind them that, if you hated Russell, I am the perfect anti-Russell vote. This is the things I tried to do. I tried to be your friend and you wouldn't let it happen. Mm-hmm. So if you want to vote for a friend, I'm the closest thing you got. So yeah, actually she probably did really well. In the whole maybe explaining herself way, not everything was great. And I think that's actually just true of Sandra always. She's not as great about it explaining her actions. But one thing I really liked is at a point that she made is that she always covered herself going into Final Tribal Council. So even though she was trying to get rid of Russell, she didn't stick herself out there to be embarrassed when she knew it wasn't going well. She knew what was going to go down and she wasn't going to stick her neck out. And I believe she said that at Final Tribal Council. She definitely says it in the episode. And I think that's just another notch in where it shows that Sandra is an incredibly strategic player, not just somebody who happens to be the ideal anti-vote. That helps too. Both times she's won, but that's the way a lot of great players have won, is being up against somebody that's not very good and reminding people of that fact. So Parvati did not win, and I've spent a few of these episodes just kind of underlying why that might not be the biggest crime that some people think it is, but I think in the result might seem like I'm like anti-Parvati or thinking that she wasn't playing as well. And I wanted to spend this moment to just give some praise because I think she was actually really good. And I imagine you do that. You think that as well. So I'll let you talk.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, obviously the double idol play is great. I think it's worth mentioning that she knew that the move was to get rid of Sandra, and like, no, she was not able to enact it, but even just understanding that a jury is going to want to vote for Sandra shows much more game fortitude than the other. It's fitting because when you did the Game of Thrones comp thing, she was Marjorie, who I also adore more than, she's my moon and stars.
Spoilers.
Nope, I was going to say, spoiler warning for this
Marjorie
season.
is also somebody who knew something was going to happen right before it did.
Way to not trust me to be able to say that, by the way. But yes.
Sorry, interrupting people is my thing.
Mm-hmm. But yes,
along with spelling words with U's.
But yeah, that is the point that I was going to make, is that, it shows, a comp we already knew was like pretty accurate before, for the similar sort of like, oh, she's flirty and uses her sexuality, but also is just really cunning and smart and blah blah blah. But now with further evidence of things that have happened, there's even like sort of another, like, knowing all the things doesn't always save you in the end, and help, but you still know the things, and that shows that you're smart. Like,
yeah. So like through the season, I think what I was well, for one, it's because I was noticing these things for the first time on the rewatch. But just I basically just want to underline, like, she wasn't robbed. There were flaws in her game, and if the jury decided that those flaws mattered more than Sandra's flaws, then it makes their judgment fine. You get to pick what's important to you, but. Man, she should never have made it this far. We spent the time talking about how she shouldn't have made that vote, but she shouldn't have made it this far. And that is,
she shouldn't have made it past, day 3, or not day 3 because they didn't lose, but like the first vote.
Yeah, and we talked about it then, that was a huge mistake. They should have voted her out instead of Randy. Obviously, that's this whole hindsight there, but at the same time, they knew she was dangerous then, and through obviously some luck, some work by Russell, but also a lot of work by herself. And frankly, that Russell is that willing to go out on a limb for her when
takes work.
Shouldn't, is credit to her. I think she played a fantastic game. Just. Sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes you lose.
Yeah, I do think we as not like we as in Purple Rock, but we in the Survivor community as a whole do tend to like have this sort of assumption that if you lose in Final Tribal Council that you're like not good. And I think it's maybe because of the tendency that people bring goats nowadays, but like there are good players. We saw it quite recently. Good players that lose in the end. And I think for a while people were acting like Steven was really sort of the only example of that, and it was just because he was against such a golden boy. But otherwise, even if it's a strategic person, it's like, well, they didn't, Rob wasn't good to the jury and like stuff like that. Whereas like you can still, it's flawed obviously, but like most games, even winner games, are usually not perfect. But like, Amanda still played a good game in China, just can't do the Final Tribal. Rob still played a good game in All Stars, just underestimated, like didn't realize that exploiting previous relationships might come back to bite him. Like Russell sucks.
Yeah, and I think that's actually that's where it comes from, right?
Yeah.
Where that whole attitude, or if you lose in the final, like if you lose right before, that's a circumstance.
Yeah, then they're the golden angel,
It's because of, it's the reactionary thing of people being tired of responding to Russell fanatics, right?
Yeah.
Like, this whole attitude that like the final, if you lose in the finals, they're talking about Russell. And it's like that there's a wide range. Yeah, Russell loses in finals because he's burned so much to the people where they just won't vote for him. How many votes has he gotten in a final? Like two? Yeah. Shambo and somebody else. But it's more than that. There are degrees to this. And honestly, it's not even just votes. Sometimes you're just not as good as the person who won, or you don't have the connections to people who won. Or and that doesn't mean that you played a bad game. It just means you got beat. And that's what happened here. And
Spencer didn't play a bad game in Cambodia. Tasha probably played a bad social game, but like Spencer didn't play a bad game. He had to come from behind a lot. He had to save himself a lot. But like, you can't. You're not going to beat Jeremy, and it's not because Val was pregnant. Like it's because everything else that he did. Like.
Yeah, and so I have no problem at all thinking that Parvati played a really good game in Heroes vs. Villains. I just wanted to point out along the way there were some flaws, and that probably transitions to the next part. Is because, like, and honestly, in most part, this is preaching to the choir. Although there are still some people in this site that maybe not there. Like Sandra deserved this win. It wasn't just an anti-Russell vote, and if it was, then good for her for positioning herself as anti-Russell. And if you want to point to maybe the biggest reason why Parvati didn't win is because she couldn't. Right. But yeah, it isn't. No sane person thinks that Russell should have won. But a lot of people will still say Parvati should have won, and no. If the jury decided she should have won, then great, but they didn't, and that's the scoreboard. And so let's talk about how awesome Sandra is.
Sandra's great. We love Sandra.
This is the difficulty at the end of a season where you know who the winner is. We've said a lot of it, but
yeah, like it's not like it's like yes, this is the finale podcast, but it's not like wow, can you believe that happened? It's like yep, the thing we knew the whole time was happening, and that we acknowledge. How is this going to happen? It happened.
Yeah, just yeah, I think it just needs to always be underlined. It's not just she played the great social game, not just that she had the friends on the journey. Sandra's just so crazy entertaining, and in a way that I think maybe gets underscored or missed. I think there's people that know that now, and I actually think she's started to get a little bit more attention to the point where like she's doing videos with Probst and Parvati,
right.
and but it's because she plays under the radar a bit that maybe people don't always think to list her as some of the most entertaining players, but like she does it all, other than win challenges, which although here's the thing, she's actually sometimes really entertaining in challenges too, because of her ineptitude.
But they're like, oh, that was fun. No, that sucked.
Or how about when she made it to the second level of one of the challenges? She's just like, I'm just as shocked as you are.
But they even included that in her winner.
I know, as they should, because she is crazy entertaining. When we're talking about the best talkers in Survivor history, she has to be on that list. Because just so much of what she says is gold, and that's why they bring her back. And it's probably was a mistake that it took so long for them to bring her back, but a lot of that was just the timing of it all. All Stars was too soon. I believe they asked her, but she was like, I'm
I believe
good.
She said no.
And then I think and then Micronesia with no winners, so this was the first opportunity. And I think actually it's weird that like a lot of people's legacy in this game just seems to be determined by how close was your season to an all-star season, because the farther it is, suddenly you get forgotten. But no, and nobody post Heroes versus Villains, people don't forget Sandra, except for maybe the people who have like reason to try and belittle her. But just that's probably the thing that stood out for me more than anything this season. Even though I knew it was happening, it's just Sandra is crazy entertaining, and a lot of the focus early in the season, we talked about it, was Rob versus Russell, and that was interesting. One of the best preseason stories ever, low bar. Russell versus Sandra is better, and part of it is because Rob versus Russell is just two of like halves of the same coin butting heads in their ultra macho way. One of it's the super insecure Russell versus the cockier, more secure Rob, but they're still kind of like samey guys, right?
Right.
Sandra versus Russell provides a real contrast, and I loved it, especially because Russell lost.
Yes, I was going to say, and we get the satisfaction of, him not winning.
Yeah, because honestly, it probably wouldn't have been anything if they didn't have to edit it to show Sandra's win. It would have been, Samoa. Do you sometimes forget the name of his first season because it's just like Russell?
No.
Me neither. That was it. I'm glad we can solve that. All right, so moving on to the reunion. It's an issue of talking about like the most popular season in Survivor history is that most of the things about it have already been discussed to death, but I still feel like perfunctorily we should discuss a bit about Russell's whole "the game is flawed."
America should have a vote.
Yeah, because maybe somebody's listening for the first time. They really want our hot take on this. It's stupid.
It's so dumb. And like, good for Jeff for being like, that's not Survivor. Also, I think everyone, mentions this, but like another great part of that is Rupert, who presumably hates Russell, like applauding, like, yeah, America should have a vote. The last time they did, I got $1 million. That was great. Let's do that.
We're going to do that again? Fantastic. Yes, America has never gotten this wrong. That's my favorite part of that too.
It's so good. And
but do you like how everybody, when he starts going off, it's just like, oh,
everyone hates him. Like, it's just, and yeah, my favorite thing, this is the thing that I was thinking of as being the finale, and then I realized, oh no, or being the final tribal council, and then I realized, oh no, that is actually the reunion, is when like Russell starts lecturing Sandra and like they're arguing, and Parvati is just like, oh my god, I thought it was done with this, and it's just like, oh, and like, get away from me, why am I in between this? And then more so when Russell just drones on and on and on, and she just looks like every woman who's ever had a man not shut up at her is just slumping. For the people on the podcast, just or people listening to the audio only, just, you know, face squished onto fist, tremendously annoyed with every sound that is happening around her.
I've never experienced that. Yeah, I probably have. I just don't look at people in the eye, so it's hard to say. Yeah, no, she was, and then that
I've
was
done
like
that to you on this podcast, Andy.
And you know I wasn't looking. But yeah, no, everybody was just so tired of his act. And yeah, I love the way Probst handled it. Both just you know, shutting him up, and it's like, yeah, that's great. Go play that game. We'll play this one. And then, like, you know, bring in people.
Go play Pirate Master.
That's right. And then, like, hey Tom, get a load of this guy.
Yeah.
And Rob, I like how Rob like starts like he's like, you know, like he's gonna help Russell out. Like, what do you think he means to say is he doesn't play to win? Rob, yeah. That's not what he was trying to say at all.
It's okay. Russell, whoa, almost knocked off my headphones. Yeah, Russell's just like so like offended. He's like, oh, do you play to win? And he's like, no. Or he's like, yeah. And he's like, well, how many times have you won? He's like, I haven't won yet, but like, he's like accepts that. Like, it's like, just because I tried, like I play that way doesn't mean it succeeds. It's like, how many times have you won? You know? And then of course the like totally subtle setup for the next.
Yeah, who knew? Yeah. So that leads us in.
Gosh, maybe that'll be a season someday. Says
yeah. So is that the worst thing to ever come out of a reunion? The fact that they planted the idea of Redemption Island right then and there.
Well, pretty bad, but I feel like this is a setup for what we mentioned earlier and the ill-fated David Murphy proposal with the broken engagement to Carolina, whose last name I don't remember. Eastwood.
I
did it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, well, here's the thing. So there's that. There's Dan's apology and Worlds Apart. There's Rudy coming back after a decade to call people queers again. But, you know, I think you can still argue Rob versus Russell is the worst thing to come from it, because then it led to a whole season.
Yeah, whereas a lot of those things are self-contained. I think
That's right. When that hour is over, we never have to deal with them again, unless you're some kind of sadist who listens to Dan Foley podcasts. But
the closest, I think, would be actually the David Murphy, Carolina Eastwood thing, because that was an engagement that happened. And then we got to the drama of it ending because he was with Alicia from One World instead. Uh-oh.
Oh, you just scooped Barbara Anderson. Have we talked
yeah,
about
I knew
her?
This one this time.
Have we talked about her on this podcast more than, say, Candace? Anyway. But yeah, those are all pretty bad. I mean, obviously, we'll have to wait to see if like the Sia Humanitarian Award becomes like a regular thing on Survivor. Then Lord. Maybe that will be the worst thing. But yeah,
I mean, at least that would as bad of at least it's like doing good in the world. You know, like
whereas trying to conceive of a season where it's 1-on-1 in a freaking 20-person or 18-person, you know.
And
contest.
When you get voted off, you're not really voted off.
Yeah, it's like, well, how do we do this 1-on-1 if they'll just get voted out? Because that's what they should do. I know, nobody gets really voted out. Yeah, no, that yeah. The ones.
And let's make it also about Jesus.
Well, I think that was the evolution of such a strategy.
Well, it started though because Matt Alrod, he planted.
Oh yeah, then people like love this Jesus stuff. More Jesus. That should be our clip. We'll put that at the end of the pod. That'll be at the end of now when people play the music.
More Jesus. We're going to hell.
Yeah,
if there's
it's possible we just lost a sizable portion of our audience because clearly this is the first time they've learned that we don't take things seriously.
Yeah. We have a very conservative fan base.
Absolutely. So yeah, no, that was bad. Let's relitigate Redemption Island right now. Yeah. So I guess kind of the only sour notes that come from the season that it led to Rob versus Russell, and then at the very end of the reunion they show a preview for Nicaragua. And it's just like, woo!
Actually, if you if anyone remembers our old, you know, for the original season rankings, of which there are updated ones on the website now. That originally,
yeah, and we won't post them at the same time as this podcast, so maybe you know,
John. But yeah, so originally we did, you guys did a whole podcast series. This was on the old side, so I was just sort of a person you talked to frequently, but was the first guest, which meant I got to talk about how Heroes versus Villains was awesome. And you guys asked what the worst thing was, and I said, A, not enough Courtney, B, led to Redemption Island.
Accurate.
Tell me I'm
Can't
wrong.
judge that, going back to Russell's game is flawed whole whining thing. How close did Aubrey fans come last season to being Russell fans from Heroes versus Villains?
As someone who was very, very surprised to see Aubrey lose, probably pretty close. It's different because she's not like an abhorrent person. So I think there's like a little, but I think part of it, so much of it was also just in response to the Edgic thing that people just didn't want. Like, it was like in a vacuum. I think without that, like, I could have accepted. I was even starting to see why Michelle was going to win. Like, before that, when we did our predictions, I just didn't want to predict it because you guys would have kicked me out. But like, we just didn't want it to be true, not even because like she was a born winner, which like, but like he just didn't want people who had been. We didn't want those
people to be right.
Yeah, because they had been talking about it when it didn't make sense and talking about it since episode 2, and it makes the show less fun to us, to people like, if it's more fun for them, more power to them. But like, yeah, so it was that, and like even people, most of us, it's like, okay, sure, if Michelle wins, but it's probably because then Aubrey must get voted off right before, and how terrible is that? And so when that doesn't happen, and it's just this like, wait, what?
Yeah, I will say that Russell truthers out there and the way they reacted throughout the years probably helped. Probably helped us to be like, let's get back to the ledge here, because people were right around that edge. Maybe a few people went over of like, these juries are dumb and juries are terrible, and this is an unjust verdict. And then it's like, oh, but wait, we don't want to be Russell stans.
Yeah, what I do think though also contributed to it is having people like Jason and Scott on the jury, where people are like, yeah, they're dumb and they're bad people and they don't like smart women, and thinking stuff like that. So it's like, yeah, well, it is flawed if there's, those people who, and they just didn't see her gay or whatever. And so you start thinking that, whereas like the Samoa winners or the Samoa jury and weren't inherently like.
No, I mean, when you have first class people like Laura Moret and Dave Fincher or John Fincher.
Well, I'm not saying those are like.
Survivor.
But like, that would be amazing. But
all his subtweeting would just be about like the cinematography and stuff.
He would actually.
Is that how you frame an interview?
He would not do well. He's not very well liked on set. But he would probably be a Russell. Yeah, but that threw me out. You don't say that to a film student, man. But yeah, look, I'm not saying those are like great characters, but they're like Laura Moret may be, a very, very different viewpoints from me, but like, I don't know if I'd call her like a Jason or Scott.
I'm just saying, it's like, always get
at least in the context of the show, too.
Just this Heroes versus Villains, and how it's just a good reminder, like, just make sure if you're somebody who always defended Sandra about jury's verdicts are always, sacrosanct, don't be that guy who's like, Aubrey was robbed. Instead, you just gotta finesse.
You can be that guy like, I am disappointed in the result.
Yes, absolutely. Or you can finesse it a bit, like, I probably did. Is like, this show didn't show me why Michelle should be the winner. And edgy people were like, oh, they sure did. I'm like, no, they didn't. They showed how she would be the winner, not why she should be.
Yeah, or
this
how,
is fun to relitigate.
Yeah, right. Or I'll say one last. It was like, I think a lot of people, and I'll admit to being part of this too, it was more like I can get why Michelle won. I don't get why Aubrey lost. Like, I feel like that's what they didn't show. But
just like they didn't show it with Parvati. But if you're on a rewatch,
rewatch. But as you say, this show is not designed to be rewatched.
It is not.
You shouldn't have to.
I don't think you should. I think you can, and that's, actually, quick talk, because this is what we're doing. A rewatch. I think it is rewarding to rewatch Survivor.
Yeah,
I just don't think that's the primary consumption model and the way that the storytelling is driven. It's not a mystery to be unlocked. It's not this thing to conversation between it. It can be that, and if that's how you enjoy it, that's great. But Survivor, the broadcast show on television's #1 network on prime time, is designed to be consumed week to week, wondering who will win. And if a season fails at that, then it fails. Thankfully, Heroes vs. Villains both didn't fail at it at the time. We come away from Heroes vs. Villains the first time saying one of, if not the best season of all time. And really quickly for this now, I feel the same way. I've not changed at all. Rewatching now, still at the end of this, we've rewatched the whole season. Still the best season of all time.
In fact, like the episodes we thought were going to be the less interesting ones, were still really great. We're still super interesting.
Now, I should add that I'm probably not someone who is prone to change their opinion once it's been stated in a public forum.
What? That's shocking to me.
I'd like to think that I'm not. I'm able to process new information, but the difficulty I have is ever assuming that I'm wrong and other people are right. So, who knows? But, I just get to flip it back on the thing I just said. Taking in new information doesn't mean as much because when I watched it the first time, that's the thing that matters the most. In general, this was fun. Feeling like every week I gotta watch a few more episodes, and really I just want to keep watching Stranger Things or something. That was a bit of an interference, but it's worth it for Heroes vs. Villains. I like how a couple of people in our staff were like, I'm skipping out on that rewatch. I just had to do this. It's like, we're forcing you to watch the best season of Survivor ever.
Yeah. And Matt, our dear, dear, wonderful friend Matt, who we like the best, was like, what do you mean? I get to rewatch Heroes vs. Villains. This is great.
Yeah, we should be so lucky.
And he's watching Stranger Things. He can do it all. You too can have it all. Ladies.
I mean, we know at least one of those people isn't exactly watching quality television. This is the sort of thing that John would have edited up. I like it when my shows are funny. Well, I get my funny shows be funny. They put chocolate in my peanut butter. Way inside baseball there. Getting back to the reunion. So they did, in addition to, the Russell Hance whining and all this, they decided the dumbest moment of all time. And they have a big segment and an award, and they, haul out Eric Reichenbach because
poor sweet Eric Reichenbach.
Yeah, and
which can I interrupt this segment to quickly make a point about Eric Reichenbach? Because you may know, so Eric Reichenbach, as of now, and as of since post Karamoan, has had buzzed hair, has had shorter hair. Eric Reichenbach in the Heroes vs. Villains reunion has short hair. Eric Reichenbach on Micronesia famously has long, flowy lion hair. Did Eric grow his hair back out specifically for Karamoan because he has the Micronesia hair on Karamoan?
Yeah, they're like, we'll bring it back, Scooper, but you need to look the same way you did before. So
that takes a while.
Keep sending us photos of your progress, and we'll think about it. Because we're already have to stretch the idea that you're a favorite. Although again,
I get it that he's
And as we discussed actually earlier in the season, the best way to come back to Survivor is either, I guess, be really awesome, but that's hard, or do something incredibly stupid, and then that punches your ticket. To that end, they had 5 moments, and 4 of them were by people who were there in the Heroes vs. Villains cast. Now,
exactly.
I think part of that is just the ease of production. I think you have to bring back Eric if you're going to talk about this at all. You can't not have Eric. But then I think they were like, that's enough. We'll just we'll find it amongst here, because really we're doing this because 2 of the moments were this season, and obviously James is an easy one.
Yeah, James is an easy one. Colby, that was probably the biggest stretch.
That's
one. But they're like, he's here, whatever.
Yeah. And I think Colby actually felt personally insulted by that, which frankly, it's insulting. So that makes sense. And then, betrayed by his good buddy Probst there, who had already moved on to, a new love.
I actually even have in my notes, I'm like, hard to argue that that's a dumb move when the footage of it shows him being like, way stoked on Tina winning, and not just like a polite, like, "Oh, I'm so happy for you" hug. He gets out like, "Yeah, yeah."
Yeah, and like he was celebrated for it. I mean, Gumbel was like, the world doesn't need another Richard Hatch, and freaking Rosie gives him a motorcycle. Like that is putting modern values onto previous season, which is again why your first viewing of something Survivor is probably more important because you're viewing it through the proper lens. And so I think it's both that they did Colby. I do think it's just because it's like, well, yeah, nominations are always 5, and we're not going to bring somebody else here, but
yeah.
What should have been the 5th? What is the 5th dumbest move?
Versus villains.
I did have this on the breakdown. I was expecting you to have an answer.
You did?
Number 16. Anyway, so I'll kick us off. You don't have to look much farther than Micronesia. It's Jason Siska and the stupid stick.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Or, if that's not a move enough, how about not playing
the idol?
Yeah, playing the idol when everybody thinks you need to play the idol, and I've told you need to play the idol. The point where James is like, nah, of course. So what is this boy doing?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's one.
Yeah, good point. That's one.
Another one, if you want to get into this whole, Colby's dumb because he took the wrong person or whatever. It's like, well, there's Ian.
Yes. Yeah, there's Ian. I mean, that's hard for like the same thing as Colby. Is like people are putting different priorities than what these people had.
Yeah, but like when they were doing the montage of stupid moments leading into next time on Survivor, leading into JT's big thing, like they threw the Ian one in there. So
yeah, they could also do something that like I definitely didn't remember being a thing until Second Chances, but like. Varner's thing wasn't just about the tiebreaker, but also that like he stepped down for the reward, when it turned out he needed immunity. You could have thrown that in.
Yeah, so I think there were other better possibilities. How about Dr. Sean and just always
just existing? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they did Colby wrong there.
Really sick before final immunity.
Yeah. Now, look, I understand. If Colby picks Keith, he wins. Yeah. But, it was a different time. There were other things. They were, people were legitimately becoming famous and being raped over the coals. He got a Gillette
contract.
Yeah, he got a lot of things.
He was on an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah, like there were post-career things. And like Richard Hatch had been like dragged over the coals for leading up to that. They hadn't society hadn't gotten around to, oh no, actually this is a game and Hatch played it well. He was like the biggest villain in America. So why he did it made sense. Now obviously why JT did it made some sense too, and we talked about it, and even Probst kind of went on it.
Yeah, I was gonna say even Probst admits like, hey, I can get where you're coming from there.
But like here's a tiki, because he gives them the award anyway.
Yeah. Well, this one was decided by America, so.
So here's something that I was actually really surprised. This is something you get in a rewatch. That was a really good reunion, and I didn't think such a thing existed.
Yeah, it's pretty solid.
Just as a format, it's not, ever going to be a great television show. Like everybody always complains, worst reunion ever, and they're all the worst reunions ever. Yeah. Except when they like remember like maybe the really worst one ever.
Karamoan.
Yeah.
And now I guess Worlds Apart.
Yeah, those are there's maybe a tier of like everything sucks, and then these ones really suck.
These ones suck the most.
But actually, I think this one pretty much did everything that a reunion needs to do. He remembered to talk to everybody.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, well, it's an all-star season, but that didn't happen in Cambodia.
Yeah. And I know some people think it's unnecessary, but you know what? I like how much time does it really take to ask everyone like a quick question? I like to hear from the people personally.
Yeah, I know not everyone does. I could say that for like maybe first-time players, maybe it's not necessary, just because you could tell there's probably going to be some really thirsty like early boots that'll like try to take more of the time that they're allowed to have. Mm-hmm. But these are all people, like especially in Cambodia, like people voted for them. Give them a little bit of time, and not just like oh hey, you were the last person, say something. Like he found reasons to talk to everybody. Mm-hmm. Everybody but Russell was able to keep it brief enough.
Yeah.
He asked some good questions and like brought back themes, and not just, you know, all about one person the way that, you know, modern reunions tend to be. You know, he remembers that, you know, James was a dick at the beginning, or
Yeah.
that
Although
Randy still doesn't like human beings, that sort of thing.
I did think I didn't love, actually, I did think it was a little weird the way he handled the James thing, because it was like, he just kind of kept pushing it, and it's like, I guess because James is pulling a little bit of the like the edit thing, but it's like, look, if James felt like he was having a good time, like he was having a good time.
Yeah, and
like,
that
and then I get them not wanting people to trail off too much, but like I really didn't like how he talked to Amanda when Amanda like started to talk, because, you know, as someone who actually played with James and was around, and she's like, well, actually James is it, and it's like, oh, well, here comes Amanda, you know, stepping in to protect James, and it's just like, don't make it weird, Probst.
I actually like that, because I think it actually does underline, you know, their dynamic, especially from this season. I think probably part of the problem why, you know, reunions tend to suck is Jeff Probst is used to interviewing these people over a period of time that has no limit, you know, and he will drag them as much as he needs to get the answers that he wants for television, and he can't do that in a live reunion show. And obviously it's become worse now that they try to make the live reunion more than what it should be, which is just a recap of the season that we just watched.
Right.
And frankly, I don't get why they try to make it more. And I understand, you know, you got, you know, Pop Star coming out. I understand wanting to do something with them. But it's like always like this remembrance of Survivor. Let's bring in these people and let's interview that. It's like nobody wants that. It's not like people tune in anymore, I think, just for the finale or the reunion. This is only for the people who've been watching the season, so let them cap off the season. But I do think, yeah, one of Probst's flaws as an interviewer, and it probably serves him well at Tribal Council, is he wants an answer, and he's going to keep asking you until he gets it. And James wasn't following that script.
Yeah, I will say, too, actually, it wouldn't have, him talking over Amanda wouldn't have bothered me as much if he had, like, said, like, oh, here comes Amanda doing this, if he had then let her, like, make her point. And I get he's trying to make it, but, like, doing that and then not actually letting her talk, it's just a little bit of, like, oh, here comes this woman trying to say something, but nope, you can't.
And
then
I wonder if the show still needs to be live. Like, do reunions need to be live? I guess probably now more than ever, I guess they do, right? Spoilers get out one way or another. But it's just like, if they could even just edit it a bit, you know, like record it on, you know, Sunday, like the day of, but then give them like 2 hours to just break it down. Maybe it'd be better. But at the end of the day, who cares? I mean, we basically want to see who wins, and then Survivor's over for several months. But again, getting back to this one, I actually thought, it was really satisfying. I got at least something. It's never going to be as satisfying as what fans want, because what we want is like 3-hour recaps from people what they did. It can't be that. It was at least something. It was something from everybody, even Sugar, who was like, "Why am I on camera? Why am I?"
Like, this was very traumatic. I'd rather not talk about it.
So yeah, and then
she looks good though. Oh yeah, the Stephanie thing was definitely the awkward.
But I don't care.
And like, especially like, she's like, "Come on, Jeff, what else do I have?" And it's like, I think she also was married to, like, at that time, a fairly successful major league pitcher. I'm like, that's not nothing.
Let's be honest here, Jeff. You're never bringing me back. I wonder if she would have been brought back if it wasn't for the pizza thing. The pizza thing just sticks. You messed with my show, lady. But I don't know, or maybe Blood versus Water would have been an opportunity. All right, so any other final thoughts on the episodes, the reunion, the season as a whole?
That weird monstrosity of the ultimate player that they...
God!
Which, of course, was a man.
Of course. Duh.
Which, I mean, really...
maybe it was transgender. Maybe it was very progressive.
Well,
I don't know which pronoun to use.
That would still be a man, Andy. That is a... But, like, I was going to say, like, maybe they are supposed to be, like, agender because it's combined, like...
That's right. I mean, it had Sandra's left eyebrow or whatever.
Yeah, like, and what What a monstrosity that would be.
Yeah,
Why
that's
did they
clearly
do
like
that?
somebody like, "Ooh, we just learned this technology." The CBS viewers will have their minds blown, and maybe
What
they
makes
did.
the ultimate survivor is definitely what their physical appearance is.
Absolutely,
We
it's
should have a whole
the
tribe
nose.
based on it.
Like I remember when she won that extra vote, it was because people were like, Amber, you have a nose for this game. So that was stupid. The fan vote going to Russell, of course, and of course
Yeah,
it's
that's
between
lame.
Russell and Rupert. But
And Russell,
at
of
least
course,
they got it
thinks,
right, and it wasn't $1 million this time.
and Russell, of course, thinks that's like super validating. And
That's
great.
right. See, I would have won. It's like, yeah,
Oh.
you would have won an edited presence. And here's the other thing, Russell. If the fan vote counted for something, they would edit it to make sure it always went the way they needed it to.
Yeah. Also, actually, speaking of Russell, one thing too is when he's talking about how terrible Sandra is at the game, like physical game, like no, and it's like, okay, we'll give you that, and like, and he, of course, to him that's not a strategic game, but like, and but when he says like, oh, like in a social game, no, she's too lippy, and like she likes it. I'm like, that's not mutually exclusive. You can be sassy. And like people like
will find it funny. This is like with Sandra. She actually does break some of the rules that people like always like. Don't do this to win. One being a liability in challenges doesn't matter. And the other is she talks so much trash. Not just teasing playful, but like when the villains would beat the heroes for rewards, she would like rub it in to like old Rupert and stuff. He was trying to like shake her hand. He's like, but it doesn't matter, and that's the thing. Like all the playbooks we often set for all of this because content and we love it. Be good, and that's what matters. And if that something works for you and a particular jury, then that's what works. And it works for Sandra because people like her.
Yeah. And she's probably self-aware enough to know that for her, coming up, like being, lippy and being outspoken or whatever, like works fine. Like that people don't get upset with her about it. Like I know like with certain people, I can get away with certain stuff. And then like we'll have some people think I'm being like really mean. And like, I'm like, but that means I like you. Like,
if anybody saw the Slack chats.
Oh,
these are the worst people on earth. And
no, we know Mark's the worst person.
Well, we know. Maybe he'd be a sympathetic figure. Who knows? He'd be the Sandra. But yeah, actually, as a credit to Sandra and her strategy and all this, and a contrast between her and Parvati, she's the person who always stood up to Russell, never backed down. So that works if everybody hates them. It's a good way of building a little allies. So yeah, no, Sandra's great. Russell's an idiot. All right, so I think that's it for the season. So last thing I wanted to do was put it to the audience. I want to ask them a few questions for feedback because this is the first time we've done podcasts about a season we'd already seen before. This is a rewatch. Was it worthwhile? Did you enjoy it? Did we do a good job? I guess is a way of asking. More just because like. As I stated early on, what we do so much is speculative usually. We're usually trying to figure out what this will mean. Obviously, that couldn't have happened. So was it worthwhile? Is it something you'd like to see again? Not necessarily see, but that brings the other part. We did this as a video thing to make it easier because now I just post it. There's no editing, as Emma's potty mouth has shown.
Sorry.
Or interruptions by my children, or just child, I guess. The other one stays.
Or bugs.
He's a good boy. Was that okay? No, I think for the main podcast, we will try to maintain the audio quality standards that we've set, except when I screw it up sometimes. But it was an acceptable trade-off. Lower quality in exchange for actually getting podcasts in the summer. So just that sort of thing. Let us know if you have any feedback. Do you have any questions you'd like to pose to the audience, Emily? Emma?
Where did the bug go? I don't know where it is.
If you guys out there know, please let us know.
Someone save me.
It probably died of old age.
Also, I mean, I was going to make a joke and be like, I'm sorry if my profanity offended you, but you already mentioned that.
I guess the question you could be like, am I better at podcasting than they are?
So, do you like me the best? I know my audio quality isn't as good, but hey, I don't do this full time. I'm not about to buy a microphone.
Yeah, you don't make the big podcast bucks like we do.
Yeah, if anyone wants to buy me a microphone.
Whereas John and I actually both had podcasts or microphones before we had the podcast.
Why?
Well, for the podcast, we were like, if we're going to do a podcast, we need microphones. Oh,
that's adorable.
Yeah. What's silly, the most silly about it is we thought we were doing one podcast. Actually, I think I borrowed one from work, but John actually ran out and bought one.
Borrowed?
What can you say? He's a nerd. All right. So, So, again, just let us know if this was a fun thing for you, if we should do it again. It won't be Heroes versus Villains, obviously.
That would be silly.
Yeah, we'll get 2 more people to Purple Rock.
Yeah, I'd bow out.
All the same things, like, Sandra's great, Russell Steve, Heroes vs. Villains is great. Do not recommend that we watch Nicaragua. It's not going to happen, people.
Not going to happen.
No.
Stop trying to make Nicaragua happen.
Yeah. You think it would be fun, and then you'd realize a few episodes in, oh, crap, we're watching Nicaragua. This is it for this podcast, and that for the summer series, Heroes vs. Villains. We're not canceling the podcast, as far as I know. Which means it also is it for any content we have planned between now and near the beginning of next season. But you can still follow along on our website at purplerockpodcast.com. Maybe we'll post some stuff. I don't know.
And if we do, we'll probably tweet about it. And where would you tweet about that?
The site, Purple Rock Pod. I'm Purple Rock Andy.
And I'm Purple Rock Emma. Hear that, Andy? What's my name? Emma. Purple Rock Emma.
It is your fault for becoming friendly and a real person. Is confusion in my brain of what your real and fake names are. If you have longer
letters to fit on Twitter.
If you have longer feedback that wouldn't fit on a tweet, or you don't want to leave in a comment, I don't know why, leave it in a comment. Our commenters are great. Comments are the best part of the whole thing.
Maybe they're ashamed of their opinion.
Maybe they want to slag us and they don't want people coming at them because our people will protect us. If you do, that's awesome. We love it when people say mean things about us because we laugh and think, oh, this person is clearly an idiot because nobody could think bad things about us. Yeah. purplerockpodcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to support us, you go to Purple Rock Podcast /Amazon, and that can help pay for all these fancy microphones that we have or don't have.
It really just pays the web fees.
Yep. Turns out when you accidentally push out like dozens of old archived podcasts at people, that's a lot of bandwidth. So,
oh no.
that was a little expensive. So, if you guys are buying stuff on Amazon, like, I don't know, Nicaragua seasons or whatever, help us out. We could use the pennies. All right. I think that's good.
Yep. Theme music for people listening on the podcast.